Good morning, Little Masters, and welcome back to today's Tolkien Times. I'm the Man of the West, also from the Prancing Pony podcast. Let's get week 48 of today's Tolkien Times underway with Mailbag Monday. Now, in today's mailbag, we have a question from Elizabeth in Kansas. She asks, what do you think would have happened if Turgon had actually listened to Tuor and retreated from Gondolin in time? Okay, that's an interesting question on its own, but she also has a follow-up. Could some of the ensuing events still have happened somehow, or was its downfall inevitable? Now, I enjoy these what-if questions, so keep them coming. Of course, there is no correct answer, which might be precisely why I like them. Still, in order to speculate, one must have all the facts that you do have in front of you, so let's go to the text. First, what is it that Tuor said to Turgon? From chapter 23 of the Silmarillion of Tuor and the Fall of Gondolin. And there we read, Then Tuor stood before Turgon, son of Fingolfin, high king of the Noldor. And upon the king's right hand there stood Maeglin, his sister's son. But upon his left hand sat Idril Celebrimbor, his daughter. And all that heard the voice of Tuor marveled, doubting that this were in truth a man of mortal race. For his words were the words of the Lord of Waters that came to him in that hour. And he gave warning to Turgon that the curse of Mandos now hastened to its fulfillment when all the works of the Noldor should perish. And he bade him depart and abandon the fair and mighty city that he had built and go down Sirion to the sea. All right, so the mortal man, but speaking the words of Ulmo, advises Turgon to abandon the city, to leave Gondolin and head down Sirion. Now, in fairness to the High King, he at least thought about it. Then Turgon pondered long the counsel of Ulmo, and there came into his mind the words that were spoken to him in Vinyamar, Love not too well the work of thy hands and the devices of thy heart, and remember that the true hope of the Noldor lieth in the west and cometh from the sea. But Turgon was become proud, and Gondolin as beautiful as a memory of elven Tirion, and he trusted still in its secret and impregnable strength, though even a Vala should gainsay it. Now, his traitorous nephew Maeglin didn't help matters, speaking in opposition to Tuor's advice, and so we read that at the last, Tuor rejected the bidding of Ulmo and refused his counsel. But that account from the Silmarillion is notoriously incomplete. So let's go to Of Tuor and His Coming to Gondolin from Unfinished Tales to see precisely what it was that the Council of Ulmo was. Now, in this fuller version of the story, after Ulmo appears to Tuor, the Vala teaches him about Valinor, the Darkening, the Noldoran exile, the doom of Mandos, and more. And then he explains this. The curse of Mandos hastens to its fulfillment, and all the works of the Noldor shall perish, and every hope which they build shall crumble. The last hope alone is left, the hope that they have not looked for and have not prepared. And that hope lieth in thee, for so I have chosen. Now, there's some really important bits in there, obviously including the idea that we read in the first part, that the fall of Gondolin truly is inevitable. After all the works of the Noldor. And it's repeated here with the idea of every hope which they build. But it's some of the next words from Ulmo's mouth that will help me in speculating on what if. First, after Tuor asks basically what good would one man's sword do to defend Turgon, Ulmo says, It is not for thy valor only that I send thee, but to bring into the world a hope beyond thy sight, and a light that shall pierce the darkness. What now? To bring into the world a hope? Now just wait, it gets better. Ulmo explains he's going to send a guide to help him find Gondolin, a guide who is the last mariner of the last ship that shall seek into the west until the rising of the star. Okay, that's huge. Ulmo is absolutely 100% without doubt explicitly referencing Eärendil. Now, let's talk about this. We already know the true hope of the Noldor lies in the west. That is, their only hope is in the Valar. Only they can stop Morgoth. But how will the west know to come? Well, that's the hope that Tuor is now prophesied to bring into the world. It's the rising of the star that Ulmo mentions here as a certain future event. Now, if we go back to the Silmarillion, even Turgon knows something is going on. We read that Tuor was so in his favor that he did not refuse him even the hand of his daughter. For though he would not heed the bidding of Ulmo, he perceived that the fate of the Noldor was wound with the one whom Ulmo had sent. And he did not forget the words that Huor spoke to him before the host of Gondolin departed from the Battle of Unnumbered Tears. Well, guess what? Now we need to go back and find out what those words were. So let's go to chapter 20 of the Silmarillion of the fifth battle, Nirnaeth Arnoediad. The field was lost, but still Hurin and Huor and the remnant of the house of Hador stood firm with Turgon of Gondolin, and the hosts of Morgoth could not yet win the pass of Sirion. Then Hurin spoke to Turgon, saying, "Go now, Lord, while time is, for in you lives the last hope of the Eldar, and while Gondolin stands, Morgoth shall still know fear in his heart." But Turgon answered, "Not long now can Gondolin be hidden, and being discovered, it must fall." Then Huor spoke and said, "Yet if it stands but a little while, then out of your house shall come the hope of elves and men. This I say to you, Lord, with the eyes of death. Though we part here forever, and I shall not look on your white walls again, from you and from me a new star shall arise. Farewell." Every single passage in all of those places points to the total inevitability of the downfall of Gondolin. So what would have happened had Turgon listened to Ulmo's words delivered by Tuor and left Gondolin? I believe Gondolin would still have been found. Now, maybe later on, because Maeglin wouldn't necessarily be around to betray its location, and it would be destroyed. It is a work of the Noldor, after all, and thus fated to be lost. Would Tuor and Idril still have wed and had a son named Eärendil who would save Middle-earth by interceding with the Valar? Yes, absolutely. Ulmo's words to Tuor make it clear that he, at least, of the Valar, know that Eärendil, the star, will come. Now, a quick aside, how does all that square with Eonwe's greeting, that's the herald of Manwë, with his greeting of Eärendil when he shows up? Well, if you read carefully, it's clear that he's not actually unexpected. The line reads, "The looked for that cometh at unawares, the longed for that cometh beyond hope." So maybe the Valar didn't know when he'd show up, but clearly he was both looked for and longed for, even by the Valar themselves. Now, back to the what-ifs. Simply put, more people from Gondolin survive if Tuor leaves the place, but Gondolin, the city itself, is fated to fall, and was so from before it was even built. And folks, that wraps it up for Mailbag Monday. If you have a question you'd like me to answer, please email it to barliman@theprancingponypodcast.com. Let him know it's for today's Tolkien Times, and I'll get to it as soon as possible, with priority going to supporters of the show on Patreon. Now, if you'd like to help me keep making this show better each week in each series, please visit patreon.com/Tolkien Times to find out how you can join the TTT Content Council, get a bonus episode every week, and more. And please join me again tomorrow on today's Tolkien Times for Tolkien Tuesday as we learn more about the professor himself. If you're watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe, follow or subscribe on podcast apps, and follow @Tolkien Times on social media. Finally, as Faramir says, go with the goodwill of all good men.